Hi friends, have you ever felt that deep ache inside when your heart breaks due to a deep loss? Notice how your blood pressure may be out of control during this time. This was my friend's blood pressure when she was going through a rough time in her life. And that kind of stress can literally break a person's heart. So in this video, we'll not only talk about the 10 signs of heart failure, but we will go over what you can do through specific foods and lifestyle changes. However, there is an under-recognized cause of heart failure that can be prevented by taking a few simple actions. And I'll get to that later. First, let's talk about how our emotions damage our heart. And for those of you who aren't touchy-feeling, even though you don't think you are, your feelings will still affect your heart. Feeling heartbroken is not just in people's head. It's actually a real phenomenon. And it translates into physical changes because your hormones surge, your heart rhythm shifts, and even the way your blood moves through your coronary arteries can change. And we see a broken heart on medical scans. The condition is called Takotsubo cardiomyopathy, often referred to as a broken heart syndrome. Stress hormones, especially adrenaline, they temporarily can stun part of the heart muscle. It can develop literally within minutes to hours after a triggering event like a sudden loss or some other traumatic event. And most people can begin to recover within a few days to a few weeks, but full recovery of heart function usually happens within a couple of months. Now, oftentimes we think of a sudden loss or sudden traumatic event, but chronic daily stress, maybe from your job or from not getting along with people at home, that can physiologically change your heart, and it can happen slowly over time. Now, a broken heart, if it doesn't repair, can lead to heart failure or even mimic a heart attack with chest pain, shortness of breath, literal EKG changes. And the coronary arteries are typically normal. The main problem is that the heart's left ventricle balloons out temporarily. Now, before you panic, let me say this. Heart failure doesn't mean that your heart suddenly stops. It's not necessarily your destiny. There are many things besides emotions that can drive it. And the earlier you recognize what's happening, the more you can do to prevent it and even reverse it. And that's really the hope that I want to share with you today. And of course, shifting your emotions is extremely important to go from negative to positive. And sometimes that will happen simply by being purposeful in your intentions to care for your heart, which includes recognizing early symptoms that your heart is breaking and then taking actions that will heal it. So here are 10 signs of heart failure. But to truly understand and recognize early signs, you need a basic understanding of the anatomy of the heart and the physiology. Now, it's not just a giant muscle that's the size of your fist. Some people it's bigger. But by mapping what each side of the heart does and what happens with specific parts of the heart and the valves and the nodes, you will better recognize the first signs of heart damage. The heart is the most well-studied organ. It's made out of 4 unique chambers separated by 2 doors called valves. Now, it's literally a powerful pump that has 2 jobs. It pumps blood into your lungs to get oxygenated, and then it pumps blood from your lungs to the rest of your body to supply oxygen to your body. So it's literally a dual chamber pump. You have the right and then the left side. The right side of the heart receives blood returning from the body, and then it pumps into the lungs to come out to the left side of the heart. The left side of the heart receives blood that comes fresh from the lungs, full of oxygen that's get pumped out to the rest of your body. Now, both sides must work in perfect sync, kind of like rowing a boat. If one side fails and it's going a different direction, usually it will overflow and affect the other side. Now, you know how sometimes the burden of extreme pressure at work can crush a person's spirit? How many of you have ever felt that? So the heart works the same way. The left atrium, the top of the left side of the heart, it can get really weak and saggy with chronic pressure. You know where it gets it from? Your blood, high blood pressure. And then it backs up and affects the valve or the stop plug called the mitral valve that separates the left atrium from the ventricle. That valve can get hard and inflexible or leaky. It's like the plastic drain in your sink. You know, over time, it just doesn't work well, right? And it leaks. And this can result in a buildup of pressure in the left atrium, and that make it have regular beats like atrial fibrillation. And when it fibrillates, it doesn't pump. So let's face it, you know, we have so much stress from home and work pressures that sometimes people just check out in life, right? You just need a break from everything. Well, the heart does the same. If you've ever felt your arms or legs shiver shivering and quivering when you're trying to hold up something heavy for too long. Well, that's atrial fibrillation. That stress is so bad that the heart can't figure out how to contract itself. So when the heart quivers, you get short of breath, especially when you're laying flat or exerting yourself, right, under stress. And sometimes you can get irregular heartbeats. And you might notice that you can't lie flat without feeling breathless. That's because the fluid is backing up into your lungs. This then leads to fatigue, coughing, wheezing, because when blood backs up in your lung, you can't breathe. There's like a traffic jam, kind of like LA traffic. Now, eventually, high blood pressure from your peripheral system, it will compromise the big left ventricle, which will eventually affect the right side of the heart. So let's talk about how to check your blood pressure. So here's my blood pressure machine. Now, the first thing that I do is I make sure that the blood pressure cuff is going to be around my arm and that the arrow lines up, or the mark lines up with my blood vessel, which is about in the middle, in the center of my arm, okay, at the joint. Usually there's a mark, there's an arrow. This blood pressure machine has a dot, and I just want to put cuff kind of snugly around my arm. Now, the next thing you do is make sure that you're actually resting your arm on something. You don't want to hold it elevated up in the air, and that you're uncrossing your hands and your feet. And then you press start. Okay, it's 89 over 68 and 62. I exercise a lot, so I also don't eat much salt. A lot of it is because of my diet. I feel fine. This is normal for me because I know my blood pressure usually ranges at this number. However, if you're usually at a higher number and it's low like this, you should actually call your physician and talk it over, make sure that it's okay to be at a number below 90. Now, the other thing is sometimes people get low blood pressure numbers because they have taken their medications. Now, if you're on medications and if you have a low number when you're sitting down, when you stand up, you may be dizzy. And if that's the case, then your medications may be too strong for your body. So for sure, you have to call your physician to make sure that that's okay for you. Recently, I was at a Bible study and my friend was looking at me and literally passed out. And she 1 minute, she was standing there and looking at me, and then she wasn't responding. And all of a sudden, she just passed out and fell on the floor. I actually helped gradually lower her to the floor. And then we called 911 and the paramedics came, and she had low blood pressure. And the reason is because she was having a lot of diarrhea, not able to keep up with her fluid loss. And on top of that, she took her blood pressure medications. So if you are on blood pressure medications that will prevent your blood pressure from naturally going up and compensating when your body is stressed out, make sure that if you have any changes in your fluid status, meaning you're unable to drink, or you're throwing up, or you're, defecating too much, you're basically pooping too much, or even peeing too much, and you don't know why, talk to your physician. A normal blood pressure is less than 120 over 80. The top number is called the systolic number. It shows how hard your heart pumps blood. And the bottom number is a diastolic number, showing the pressure when the heart relaxes. Now, healthy blood pressure will keep the oxygen flowing smoothly to every organ without straining the arteries. And when it stays too high, those arteries, they get stiff and they get weak, and that leads to high blood pressure. Eventually it backs up and leads to heart disease, kidney damage, and possibly brain damage, like a stroke. When it drops too low, it's not so good either, right? There's always a medium, good middle. Now, organs can be deprived of blood flow, causing dizziness or fainting. So your pressure naturally rises in the morning and falls at night. But long-term stability depends on your diet, your stress, your hydration, and how flexible your blood vessels are. Now, normal blood pressure is a pressure that your blood exerts against your arterial walls as your heart is actively pumping. It's expressed as what I mentioned earlier, the systolic or the top number, and then there's a diastolic bottom number. Now, when the heart contracts and pushes out blood, that tells you the maximum systolic pressure, and diastolic is when the heart relaxes between normal beats. Now, your arteries are supposed to be flexible tubes, but over time, if you sustain continuous high blood pressure, your arteries will stiffen because that pressure damages them, and that blood pressure backs up, damaging organs and can potentially cause dementia. But if your pressure is too low, below 90 over 60, depending on if you're an athlete or not, you can actually feel dizzy or weak or faint because your organs, they're not getting enough blood flow. And your blood pressure will change depending on what you eat, what you drink, what you do, and how you feel. But if you have an abnormal blood pressure, don't panic. Go and ask your doctor if it's normal for you.
Hi friends!
I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now. So here are 10 foods that actually can lower blood pressure naturally. Number 1 are leafy greens like spinach, kale, Swiss chard, and beet greens, which are rich in potassium, magnesium, and nitrates that help to relax your blood vessels. Number 2 are beets. Now, beetroots are high in dietary nitrates, which convert to nitric oxide to improve blood vessel dilation within hours. Number 3, berries, especially blueberries and strawberries. They are packed with anthocyanins that enhance endothelial function, or the lining of your blood vessel walls. Number 4 are oats, beta-glucan. It actually improves arterial elasticity and helps to reduce blood pressure. Now, garlic has allicin. It can boost nitric oxide and decrease vascular resistance. Celery, it contains NBP, or N-butyl phthalate, a natural compound that relaxes smooth muscles in the arterial walls. Bananas, they're a convenient source of potassium, which helps the kidneys excrete excess sodium. Flax seeds, they're rich in alpha-linoleic acid and lignans, which improve vessel flexibility. And then you have dark chocolate or cacao. They're high in flavonols that stimulate nitric oxide and lower diastolic pressure. We also have pomegranates loaded with polyphenols that reduce oxidative stress and enhance nitric oxide availability. Now keep in mind that how much you eat, what form of what you eat, it can either reduce or enhance the food's ability to make enough of a difference so that you can actually see a difference on your blood pressure meter. So for example, if you're eating from this list of foods, then you may not see any overall difference or even have higher blood pressure, because processed foods like processed meats, bacon, sausage, ham, and hot dogs, they're loaded with sodium and nitrates, which constrict blood vessels. Canned soups and instant noodles, they often contain over 800 to 1200 milligrams of sodium per serving, enough to spike blood pressure for hours. Pickles and fermented vegetables with added salt, they have high sodium content, which can quickly rise systolic blood pressure. Different cheeses, many aged and processed cheeses, they're heavy in sodium and saturated fat. And let's not forget fast food, burgers, fries, fried chicken, pizza. They combine trans fats, refined carbs, and salt, the perfect storm for high blood pressure. And those prepackaged snacks, they're fun, but those chips, crackers, pretzels, and salted nuts often contain so much sodium and preservatives that you sabotage yourself by eating them. And of course, let's not forget sugary drinks. Those sodas, sweet teas, and energy drinks, they can cause insulin spikes. They can have so much caffeine that they raise your blood pressure with caffeine alone. They can also trigger the kidneys to retain more sodium to increase your blood pressure. Alcohol activates stress hormones as well as dehydrate your body, which can both raise your blood pressure. Now, coffee and energy drinks, they have a lot of caffeine unless you get decaffeinated ones. So that can actually temporarily elevate your blood pressure and heart rate. And refined and processed foods like white bread, pastries, and processed carbohydrates, they all increase inflammation and insulin resistance. That drives high blood pressure over time. So if your diet has any of those foods that I just mentioned, it's nearly possible to lower your blood pressure without taking medications. However, one thing that people are putting on the table is movement. Certain movement, just about 30 minutes a day, can significantly improve your blood vessel flexibility, and it can lower both the systolic and diastolic blood pressure numbers. So number 1 is cycling. When you cycle, you're boosting nitric oxide production, and this straightens your heart muscles while keeping stress hormones low. Number 2 is swimming. Low impact, full body workout that enhances circulation, calms the nervous system. Number 3 is yoga. Especially poses that combine deep breathing can reduce cortisol and sympathetic overdrive. Tai Chi is a slow and mindful movement that balances the autonomic nervous system and improves vascular tone. And you may want something more active like jogging or light running. That will also improve endothelial function. It also increases oxygen efficiency to the heart. So strength training or modern rates can build muscle and improve insulin sensitivity and lower resting blood pressure when done correctly. Stretching and Pilates, amazing. It promotes relaxation, improves blood vessel compliance, and even hiking in nature, forest bathing. It combines aerobic activity with stress reduction, natural sunlight, and exposure to nitric oxide synthesis. Breathwork and meditation, slow diaphragmatic breathing, it can activate your vagus nerve to directly reduce blood pressure by calming the cardiovascular system. Sure, some people focus on movement and find extreme benefit, but over time, if you don't fix your foods, then all those chemicals that you eat, it's going to determine your heart's ability to repair from stress and other factors in life. And when the heart gets stressed, like from obstructive sleep apnea, uncontrolled asthma, or smoking, it can affect the right side more than the left. And typically the right atrium that receives, remember, the blood that has less oxygen, and then that blood goes into the right ventricle where then it pushes it into the lungs. But structural changes like pulmonary hypertension and triclepsic valve diseases can affect this process. So this can lead to swelling of the legs and the belly and irregular heartbeats, elevated neck veins called jugular venous distension. And overall, that will then back up to the liver. You may have right upper quadrant tenderness. However, when it gets bad enough, you're going to affect the right ventricle. So if you find yourself getting up in the middle of the night urinating, that may be a subtle sign that things going wrong with your circulation. Did you know that high blood pressure is a leading cause of heart disease because it forces the heart to work against a constant resistance? And if a heart attack happens, it can scar the pump and reduce the muscle strain. So things that can increase it would be like obesity, diabetes, smoking, other toxins that can all accelerate the damage. And the heart has different areas. Remember the valves that separate the chambers? Well, you got to keep your valves intact or you're at higher risk of heart failure. But there is a type of heart failure that has nothing to do with diet or exercise. Have you ever seen this bug? You may find it in your garden. This is a kissing bug, and you will often find them in pairs mating. The problem is that many carry a parasite that affects humans called Trypanosoma cruzi, which is Chagas disease. Chagas disease is an under-recognized cause of heart failure, but it is increasingly getting more prevalent in the US as worldwide, especially where I live in Southern California. I have these bugs in my garden. The infection can stay silent for years, even decades, before suddenly there's damage to the heart muscles and electrical system that can lead to arrhythmias and cardiomyopathy, which is full-blown heart failure. It's often overlooked by doctors because most people assume people get heart attacks or heart failure from having high blood pressure and cholesterol. So how do you get Chagas disease? It's from a bug bite. And the bug usually bites somewhere near the face or the eyes or the mouth while a person is sleeping. That's why it's called a kissing bug. But as it feeds on your blood, it poops near the bug site. And then the feces contain the parasite Trypanosoma cruzi, which causes the disease of the heart, Chagas disease. And then it itches, right? After you get a bug bite. So the person rubs the area and then the parasite is accidentally rubbed into the tiny break of the skin or into the eyes or the mouth. And once inside the body, the parasites, it enters in your bloodstream. It eventually invades your heart muscles and other tissues. Scary, huh? How do you prevent from getting bitten by the kissing bug then? The kissing bugs actually can feed on a variety of animals, and the parasite can also be transmitted to dogs and cause heart failure in them too. Unfortunately, we don't have a shot to prevent against Chagas or in animals or in humans. But I would plug up all your gaps around your doors, baseboards, window screen, and make sure you close your doors and windows after people enter. Now keep the area around your house kind of clutter-free so that these insects don't hide. Remove piles of leaves or wood, of trash, and they're also attracted to light. So if you keep your light off, if it's safe, then that would be effective in not attracting them. And speaking of light, if you want to learn more about the health benefits of light, watch the next video.